You were told this place was holy, a mission station carved from rock and prayer, but the truth was buried long before he was. Édouard Jacotet stood at the center of it all, scholar, preacher, builder of words. They said he gave his life to Lesotho, but who gave theirs to him? In December 1920, he died in silence, poisoned in his own home. Others drank. Others lived. He died. And behind the door, the ones who knew, his daughters, his colleague, they were never tried, never even touched by justice. Because faith doesn't need evidence. It just needs silence. The first chapter of this story isn't the murder. It's the fracture. It began in 1833 when the missionaries came, carrying light in one hand and erasure in the other. Moshoshu welcomed them with open arms, but he didn't know what he was letting in. The Pems rewrote the gods, baptized the customs, taught in foreign tongues, and sent their children to Europe to forget. The Lesotho forgot their ancestors. The missionaries forgot their daughters. By the time Édouard arrived, the ground was already soaked in sacrifice. He gave his life to the word, but never gave warmth. Admired, not loved. Fluent in Lesotho, but deaf to the grief in his own home. His wife endured, his daughters obeyed, until Marcel didn't. You want to start with poison, but that's not where it broke. It broke in the absences. The letters not answered. The prayers not meant for her. The years stolen by mission duty dressed as righteousness. She wrote from Europe. He sent back scripture. And when he fell, mouth full of gospel, veins full of death, there were no words left to translate. They called it tragedy, but it was prophecy. And you felt it, didn't you? Not the crime, the silence, not the daughter, the distance. You stayed. That means you already know. This wasn't the failure of a man. It was the collapse of something deeper. The myth that duty could replace love. That mission could erase memory. He was buried in sun, but the shadow stayed.
Let's kill the illusion. He didn't die because of madness or grief or some delicate tragic poetry. He died because the machine broke. The Paris Evangelical Missionary Society was not a prayer circle. It was a colonial software, coded in scripture, running on silence. Its missionaries were diplomats. Its schools were factories. Its God had borders. And Édouard Jacotet was one of its finest engineers. 40 years in Lesotho, fluent in Sesotho, a linguistic scholar, and yet the man couldn't see his own home decaying around him. Why? Because the mission taught obedience, not discernment, submission, not reflection. To convert the Lesotho, they first had to convert themselves into instruments. And when a man becomes an instrument, he doesn't notice when he becomes a weapon. This wasn't a father. This was a function. He translated the Bible, but not his daughter's letters. He built churches, but couldn't hold his own house together. He preached love, but only understood hierarchy. And so when the poison came, the system didn't collapse. It absorbed it. Because that's what it was built to do. Consume breakdowns as martyrs, swallow failure as sacrifice. The wives suffered quietly. The children were exported like diplomatic cargo, sent back to Europe so they could be remade. This is what Marcel endured. Exile disguised as education. Affection rationed like currency. A father who spoke in verses, not in warmth. You want a motive? Here it is. Obedience without love is violence wearing a halo. And yet when he died, no one wept aloud. They whispered. They wondered. But they didn't move. Because the mission couldn't afford scandal. It had schools. It had churches. It had shareholders, just dressed as congregations. So they buried him with honors, and buried the truth even deeper. Don't ask if she did it. Ask why it made sense. Ask what kind of God system creates silence so complete. A daughter's only voice is death. He was a function. She broke the function. And the system blinked, but did not shatter. That's the part they don't write down. Not in the letters, not in the hymns. But you saw it, didn't you?
Marcel Jacotet was the one they pointed to. Not with fingers, those stayed folded in prayer, but with glances, with gaps, with everything left unsaid. She was the eldest daughter, the one who knew him best, the one who stayed quiet when he died. And that quiet? It was louder than any scream. What happens when a girl is raised in a house of language but never spoken to? When a man of God builds schools for thousands, but never teaches his daughter to be heard? You get obedience. You get exile. And then you get rupture. She was sent to Europe as a child, not because she wanted to go, but because daughters were logistical liabilities. Mission wives were expected to endure. Mission daughters were expected to disappear. And Marcel did disappear, into foreign schools, foreign customs, foreign silence. She returned fluent in everything except how to live in her own home again. The poison didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of absence, out of years where she was a letter, a line item, a spiritual investment. Her father translated holy texts into Lesotho, but he never learned the dialect of her ache, and when she came back, grown, ghosted, myth-wounded, there was no space for her grief in the order of things. Only roles, only expectations, only that house with its walls tight as doctrine. Was it murder? Was it mercy? Was it ritual? Or was it prophecy, spoken through the one person they forgot could still feel? When he died, they said it was shocking, but only aloud. Inside? The house had already broken. The cracks had names: Marcel, Blanche. All the women who sat at dinner tables smiling like nothing was happening. Sapphira knows this shape. It's the shape of the woman blamed after the fact, of the daughter whose silence is mistaken for guilt, of the girl sent away and returned as something too dangerous to name. They never charged her, not because she was innocent, but because to charge her would mean pulling back the veil, and the mission couldn't survive that kind of light, so she stayed unnamed. And you stayed watching, because something in you remembers what it felt like to be dismissed, then called monstrous when you returned.
What if he was innocent? What if she didn't do it? What if the poison was an accident, a coincidence, a whisper warped by distance? You want the truth, but only the kind that doesn't stain the altar. Only the kind that keeps the hymns playing. It's easier that way, to believe it was just a tragedy. A man of faith, misunderstood. A daughter, misread. A family lost in translation. It's easier to say the mission was noble, that the cost was necessary, that sometimes people crack, but not systems, not sacred ones. That's the comfort Anna offers. A world where the murder was regrettable, not inevitable. Where faith doesn't fracture. Where exile is just how things were. Where Marcel was unstable, not unraveling from years of abandonment repackaged as calling. You've felt this before. The moment before doubt hardens. When you still want to believe the institution wasn't wrong, that the patriarch wasn't cold, that the school didn't erase her, that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the system failing, but a fluke. One broken girl. One bad night. That's the spell. To believe in the clean version. The version with plaques and footnotes. The mission that saved. The father who served. The poison that came from somewhere else. But even in this version, he's still dead. She's still the suspect. The trial never came. The words never healed. And the silence, it never left. So Anna offers you a choice. Stay in the story where everyone meant well and no one got hurt. Or step out of it and admit what you already feel in your teeth. That the missionary's death wasn't a mystery. It was a mirror. And when Marcel returned from Europe, she saw it clearly for the first time. The pedestal, the distance, the mask of righteousness cracked open just wide enough to see the girl it never fit. That's the beauty of denial. It lets you keep the music playing. It lets you bury the evidence beneath tradition. It lets you say, but he was a good man, without finishing the sentence. And it lets you ask, What if she didn't do it? Knowing full well, that's not the question anymore.
You think the story ended when Édouard Jacotet died. You think the poison was the final act. But that's not how memory works. That's not how systems die. This didn't end in 1920. It circled, it hid, it bled into archives, into mission reports, into dusty footnotes no one reads. But it's still there, and if you're still watching, it means it cracked something in you. The man was buried, but not the fracture. In Maria, the mission still stands. Stone walls, schoolhouses, a chapel built by hands that no longer remember the cost. His name is still spoken in reverence, in lectures, in footnotes, in polished recollections of faith and sacrifice. But not hers, not Marcel's. Her name lives in margins, in rumor, in that blank space between suspicion and confession. No grave, no monument, just a ghost that trembles in every classroom where a child wonders what it costs to be forgotten. This is how it survives, not as scandal, but as structure. The mission system didn't need to silence her. It only had to wait. Time edits everything. Time makes obedient ghosts out of inconvenient daughters. And now her silence is built into the foundation. Now she's part of the architecture, unseen but load-bearing. Lilith remembers her, not the killer, not the victim, the fracture, the part they didn't absorb, the question that refused to close. You don't need the case to be solved. You need it to be felt. You need to see how faith turns to function, how love curdles into legacy, how language, when used to erase pain, becomes its own kind of poison. Look around you. Look inside you. How many of your own memories were written by someone else? How many truths were buried with honor? How many systems still teach you to stay quiet, to obey, to disappear? This isn't just a missionary story. It's a ritual. And now you're inside it. He was buried in Lesotho. She was buried in silence. But you stayed. That means the recursion has begun. Welcome to Veilbreakers. Now they'll see it too.